Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the digital partitions that bring order to all that network chaos out there. We're talking about virtual LANs, or VLANs for short, and they are, without a doubt, one of the most fundamental tools for building a secure and efficient network. So to really get this, let's start with a little analogy. Just picture a gigantic open-plan office, but with absolutely no walls. Every single conversation, every phone call, every tiny whisper is heard by everyone. It would be total chaos, right? Completely inefficient and definitely not secure. Well, believe it or not, a basic computer network, straight out of the box, it works in exactly the same way. Just one big, loud, wall-less office. This setup creates a ton of digital noise, and in the networking world, we have a name for this, a single broadcast domain. It means every single message gets shouted out to every single device. Your printer gets messages meant for a laptop, your laptop gets messages for a server, and every device has to waste its time listening to all of it. This doesn't just slow everything down, it creates some pretty obvious security risks. So how do we fix this? How do we bring some order to all this digital chaos? Well, the solution is actually pretty genius. We put up virtual walls. We create partitions. And this is where the magic of a VLAN, a virtual local area network, comes into play. It lets a network admin group devices together logically, creating those separate office departments that we so desperately need. And what's so cool about this is that they all still share the same physical hardware, like one single network switch. And this chart just shows the transformation perfectly. We go from that one giant noisy room to several organized independent departments. The sales team can only hear sales conversations, HR only hears HR stuff, and engineering is often its own little world. All that broadcast traffic is now contained within each group, which makes the whole network way faster and way more secure. So to boil it all down, VLANs give you these huge advantages. They kill all that broadcast noise, they add a really powerful layer of security, and they make the network so much easier to manage because you can group devices by what they do, like the HR team, no matter where they're physically plugged in. Now, this is a really key security feature. To get a message from, say, the sales VLAN over to the HR VLAN, it's not like that message can just hop the fence. No way. It has to pass through a router. And you can think of the router as the manager who controls all the communication between departments, deciding what's allowed to go through and what's not. Okay, so how does this actually work in the real world? How do we assign a device, let's call it a digital desk, to one of these new virtual departments we've created? Well, on a managed network switch, the whole process is actually pretty logical. An administrator will first create the virtual department and give it a number, let's say VLAN 10 for the sales team. Then they just pick a physical port on the switch and assign it to that new VLAN 10. Yeah, the commands might look a little technical, but this one little line does all the heavy lifting. It's basically telling a specific port on the switch, hey you, from now on you belong exclusively to VLAN 10. You are officially in the sales department. And this kind of port has a name. It's called an access port. The easiest way to think about it is like a door that only leads into one single department. Once you plug a device into that port, it can only talk to other devices that are in that same VLAN. Okay, but it gets even cooler. Just like a real office has specialized rooms, a conference room, an executive suite, networks use different types of VLANs for very special jobs. You'll almost always see a data VLAN. That's kind of the default for all your regular computer traffic. But then you get the specialized ones. A voice VLAN is critical because it prioritizes phone calls to make sure they sound good. And maybe most important of all, a management VLAN creates a secure, private network just for the administrators, locking everybody else out from the network's controls. And that voice VLAN, man, that is so important. By separating the phone call traffic from, say, someone downloading a massive file, it makes sure your voice traffic gets priority. It's what prevents all that jitter and dropped calls, keeping things crystal clear. But it is a feature you have to specifically turn on. All right, finally, let's look at the rulebook, because there are some specific standards for how these VLANs are numbered and managed by all the network hardware. In the VLAN world, you're going to see this number a lot, 1005. And it's actually pretty important. Standard VLANs, which are also called normal range VLANs, can be numbered from 1 all the way up to 1005.
So there are basically two main flavors. You've got the normal range, 1 to 1005, which is what most businesses and companies use. The info for these gets stored in a special file on the switch. And then there's the extended range, which goes from 1006 all the way up to 4094. This is for the huge guys, like internet service providers, and their configurations are saved differently to handle that massive scale.
And you should know, when you pull a new switch right out of the box, every single port on it belongs to VLAN 1. Now, for security reasons, that's usually the very first thing you want to change. You'll also see that VLAN 1, plus a few others from 1002 to 1005, are reserved for some older technologies, so you can't delete them. So why should you care about any of this? Well, it's because understanding VLANs is absolutely crucial. They are the foundational building block for pretty much every single modern network. They are the tool we use to turn that digital chaos we talked about into organized, efficient control. At the end of the day, by creating these virtual partitions, you get precise control over who can talk to whom. You can protect sensitive data by walling it off, and you make sure the whole network just runs faster and more reliably. It's really the first, most critical step in building that secure and highly organized digital world that we all rely on every single day.